Week number 3 is behind us. We started getting exciting news, but also very sad news on layoffs. Let's talk about everything. Let's summarize the week from the major averages to the major indices, and of course, plan ahead for the week ahead. Are you ready for it? Let's go! So welcome back to the channel, investors and traders. I'm Micha from our channel, Stock Talk with Micha Stocks, where we talk about the major averages, the major indices, and everything between them. And let's start sharing the screen and going over the major averages. The Dow Jones ended this week on a minus 2.3%, while the S&P and the Nasdaq ended on the green. S&P ended plus 0.26%, but the Nasdaq overperformed with a 1.84 gain on the week. And when we look year to date, the year started great. Can it end now? Can we maybe not continue? I'm just kidding. The Dow Jones is still green from the beginning of the year, plus 0.72, S&P plus 3.88, and Nasdaq already 7.25% gain after a very, very bad 2022, and the Russell gaining 6.66%. The crypto market is on fire. Bitcoin over the week is up 9.5% while I'm recording this video. The Bitcoin is 23,181. The reason why I'm mentioning that is while you see this video in a few hours, it might be higher or lower by hundreds of points because it's Bitcoin, so it's up 9.5%. ETH is up 4.95, and year to date, almost 40% Bitcoin's up, while ETH is also 38%. When we look at our heat map, while the biggest fangs and the biggest companies in the world are green with very strong gains, the markets will go up, mainly on the Nasdaq, and you can see Amazon plus 3%, Google plus 7.89 with a lot of news behind it, and Apple. When we look at our major indices, you can see the communication services is up 1.4%, while the industrials are down 3.39%. You can see the different sectors here in front of you. You can see 3 sectors on the green, which are the communication, the technology, and the energy. All the rest are on the red side. And when you look at all the other, let's look at them for a second, all the other sectors, you can see that, not the sectors, sorry, the US in the industries, you can see that oil and gas exploration went up 1.88% for the week. Software, internet, semiconductors, and airline, all on the green. But on the other hand, you can see that solar had a very bad week with a minus 2.78%. And now let's start covering the news. So we had a lot of earnings, and during the week we saw United with very strong earnings, but the stock went down. We saw Alcoa, which talked about demand problems. Netflix with a lot of news. We're going to cover some of them. And SLB with continued gains. Let's start with the news. The first portion of the news is going to be focused on the layoffs. Google laying off or cutting around 12,000 jobs. The company says it's about 6 to 8% of their workforce. Unity Software, ticker U, lays off 200 employees. Microsoft, ticker MSFT, with 11,000 employees. Amazon starting to lay off, part of their plan to shed 18,000 of their employees. WeWork cut 300 jobs. Teladoc cut 300 jobs. And this, no doubt, this is Amazon closing or minimizing their drone unit. This is going to be one of the worst Januaries on record. You can see here in layoffs.fyi, which they try to calculate through all the job postings and all the news, how many layoffs have been in tech. And you can see from 2023, their number is a bit shy of 56,000 layoffs. You can see the blue bar here, the light blue bar, versus the whole year. Very, very difficult time if you're in tech or in other areas where layoffs are picking up steam. This is our YouTube page, by the way. If you're not subscribed yet, this would be a great opportunity to click that subscribe button and, of course, turn notifications to get notified every time there's a new video coming up and posted. Let's start with the other news. So, Alibaba. Ryan Cohen takes a stake. Ticker is BABA. And he urges the company and the management to increase their buybacks. At least from his perspective, the stock is cheap And that's why he wants the stock to go up, which makes sense. If he invested, he wants the stock to go up. Another very interesting data, demographic data, shows that China, for the first time in 60 years, their population is declining, meaning they had less birth over death. And during 2023, it's projected that India is going to surpass and being the biggest country by a population size. Microsoft identifying the huge buzz around ChatGPT and OpenAI, integrating it into their Azure cloud, and hoping to surpass AWS in the next few years through very intelligent AI capabilities in their cloud. EV adoption is surpassing 10% in the last year, and the whole concept of EVs is now a lot more common. And now we're going to talk about a lot of EV companies. The first one that reduced price was Tesla. That happened last week. Following that, XPEV is the ticker, needed to do the same thing in China. Probably in the next few weeks, we will see how margins dealt with all that. Harley Davidson with a very interesting quote from their CEO saying that they're probably going to go all electric in the next few years. It's not going to happen that fast, but it's going to happen. So if you're used to the noise coming from a Harley, you probably need to get one before there won't be any. These are the Tesla China insurance numbers. You can see that after the price reduction, the numbers went up. It would be very interesting to see the numbers this week and probably be posted Sunday or Monday, because this increase is a very, very dramatic increase, and it created the buzz around reducing prices, with Tesla being the EV that has the biggest margin, so they can reduce prices easily with less impact on their margin. It would be very interesting to see the others as well. You can see the same price reduction happened in the US as well. Inventories are coming down, and across the globe, almost everywhere, you can see wait time starting to creep up again, which means backlog is being built up again, which is a good sign for Tesla demand. On Disney front, the fight between Peltz and Disney board continues. Disney board says that Peltz has no value being added to the board because he doesn't understand media. And then Peltz just shows them the list of board directors and says most of them don't have any media understanding. Why am I that different? Again, the fight continues. Apple introducing M2 chips for their MacBooks and their Mac Minis, while also introducing the new HomePod. But on the front of new gadgets or new lines of business, they're going to delay their AR, which is their kind of metaverse. You can't say an Apple metaverse, you're saying augmented reality. They're augmented reality glasses because they came out too expensive. Margins not there. U.S. mortgage rates continues to fall for fourth months in a row. You can see this headline from January 19th, 6.23. A day later, it's already 6.15, so it keeps going down, which is a sign that not only the bond market, but also mortgages and everyone that is looking forward identifies that the Fed is not going to keep the rates as high as they at least communicate, and rates are starting to come down. When surveying CEOs across the globe, whether they're global CEOs, global C-suite, US CEOs, European CEOs, Japanese CEO, and Latin America CEOs, their number one hesitance for this year, and their number one topic that is forefront in their mind is economic downturn, recession, which means that this is the most communicated recession ever, which might be the reason why it hasn't happened yet. Bank of America Global Fund Manager Survey shows that fund managers are underweight in a dramatic way to U.S. equities. When U.S. starts picking up from yes, no recession, this money will start going into the stock market for U.S. equities, which will fuel the rally once it starts. And this is a big problem. We're talking about it almost every week, the credit. In this chart, you can see how credit increases for the accounts, which means that we're going to face a credit problem. And we are not the U.S. Government that we can increase the ceiling. For households, this is a big issue. Another point of optimism is the amount of cash on the sidelines. You can see here again on Bank of America Global Survey, you can see the amount of cash right now on the sidelines is the highest that it has ever been. Combine that with underweight equities, this can fuel a rally for months once things, at least once the sentiment changes that we are in a good path. PPI, the Producer Price Index, came out this week showing that inflation is cooling once again on the producer side and not only on the consumer side, which brings the question again to the Fed. What are the data points that you're looking at? Davos. This week, the World Economic Forum was in Davos. All the who's and who's, CEOs, policymakers were there, and there were several highlights and headlines that we're going to cover here. The first coming from Goldman Sachs CEO David Solomon after having a very bad earnings release, saying that, of course, they're very disappointed and they hope that next quarters they can overachieve because they had really bad quarter this quarter. And this is Dara Khosrowshahi, the Uber CEO, which just came back from a Ukraine visit, that says that he wants to increase the number of drivers, whether in Ukraine or across the US. And he sounded very optimistic on Uber's future. What does he know that we don't know going into earnings? This is Jamie Dimon, that at least from his perspective, rates are probably going to be higher than 5%. And he keeps on pounding the pessimist view, which some say that that's exactly his job. He needs to be pessimistic and lay out all the bad things that might happen and not the good thing. On the other side, and to add to that, he also says that Bitcoin is basically a Ponzi scheme. He says, look, there's 21 million coins. Excellent. What happens when we reach the 21 million? Satoshi Nakamoto might come out and say, oh, okay, I'm introducing another 21 million. Well, there is that option as well. So that's him continuing being negative on crypto market. And this is James Gorman. He is the Morgan Stanley CEO, that in his perspective, he's on the other side of the pendulum, saying that I think we are beyond the inflation. The inflation has peaked. I'm optimistic at the future. And he sees the Fed slowing down or even actually stopping and pivoting with rate hikes. And this is BMO CEO, the Bank of Montreal, Darrell White, which states that at least in his mind, the next 3 to 4 months are going to be bumpy. After that, he expects a pivot. This is the new co-CEO, Netflix. Netflix reported earnings on Thursday, and a minute before reporting earnings, they announced that Reed Hastings is leaving his CEO chair, just staying as chairman of board, and adding Greg Peters to be the co-CEO of Netflix. This is going to be a very interesting transition, and this is how a succession plan looks like. Costco approves Costco ticker COST approves $4 billion of buyback firepower. They believe their stock is underpriced and they would like to buy it back and increase the value to shareholders. And these are a few highlights and headlines from Fed officials. This is Fed Bullard. That I remind everyone, Fed Bullard wants 5 to 7% rates. Where there's no data supporting that, well, he keeps pounding that drum, saying that they should increase 50 basis points. Why? That's what he thinks. There's no data to support it, but that's what he thinks. Governor Waller, which is also a Fed governor, believes that 25 basis points are enough. Where actually there was a long interview with him where he said something that was very interesting. He said, look, we missed the ball when we talked about transitory. We said transitory because that was the data that we saw. But apparently it wasn't that transitory. It took longer for inflation to cool down than we anticipated. Now we're not going to do the same mistake. We prefer overshooting, breaking something, and dropping rates very fast rather than something else. Once he said dropping rates, all the computers identified that, and the rally on Friday, that was a mistake. It didn't end yet. We're continuing. Yeah, sometimes these things happen while you're recording, and since I'm not cutting anything out, you're basically seeing everything that happens behind the scene. Ilan Mui from CNBC actually not in CNBC anymore, but as of Friday, talking about the debt ceiling. So Secretary Yellen is very much involved in the debt ceiling. Right now, the U.S. government has reached the debt ceiling, which means that they cannot spend more than they have. It's probably going to be resolved the 101st time, but you never know. Everyone can make a drama out of it. Right now, it's mainly a drama of a political drama. Nordstrom, ticker JWN, post a very weak holiday sales and cuts their full year 2020 view, meaning that they're seeing slow sales, mainly holiday sales. But if they extrapolate from holiday sales, they believe that they're going to see a very bumpy road, which dragged Macy's, Kohl's, and other retailers' stocks down. This is Roblox with an amazing story this week. Started the week with very strong metrics. Their daily active users were up, the hours were up, everything was great. The stock shot to the cloud, went up 13%. 24 hours later, they're getting a downgrade. Once you get a downgrade from an analyst, you drop again. And basically, they came all the way to the same price they were before those daily active metrics, but then came Thursday and Friday, and the stock rallied, ending the week at 8.46. This is the power of low liquidity in the market, headlines that can move stocks by 8 to 13% per swing. It's become crazy out there. Uber is working with automakers to customize an electric vehicle for ride sharing. It's very interesting who they're working with, which we don't know yet, and what exactly do they believe is going to happen. It's going to be super interesting. U.S. weekly jobs came as well, and they came shy, meaning that less people claimed unemployment. So the labor market is still very strong, which is against what the Fed wants. But on the other hand, we're seeing tens of thousands of layoffs. How can we square that? Well, the answer is pretty easy. Most of the people till now, I'm talking before the last week's wave, found jobs after 30 days. So they are not even in the statistics because most of them haven't even claimed unemployment. So they're not in the numbers, which means that the Fed is not even seeing them in all the numbers. And when I'm mentioning Fed, of course, it's all the different companies that are measuring these things. Housing and real estate is still stuck in the mud. It hasn't picked up yet. We're seeing all that in the data, of course. And this is a very interesting story coming on Friday. And it talks about NewScale Power. NewScale Power is a company that produces small light water reactor, which means that I'll even go to the smallest portion of geography, which are cities. Cities can start and have small nuclear reactors for electricity. It might sound crazy because we think of all the pollution and all that kind of top of mind. But when it's small, when it's built in the right way, it might be the safest, the cleanest way to produce energy, which reduces our need for fossil fuels. It would be very interesting. Ticker SMR. Follow the company. They might have more interesting news. And the last piece of information that came Friday, this is Christine Lagarde, the European Fed, which mentioned that the opening of China right now poses again an inflationary problem. The reason for that is pretty clear. Prices of oil will go up. Prices of oil will go up. Prices in the station will go up. Prices in the gasoline station are going to go up. Inflation. But on the other hand, supply chain will be eased. So between oil prices and supply chain, it would be very interesting to see who's going to win. Now, let's talk about next week. Next week, Thursday, we're going to have the GDP annualized quarter over quarter, and we're going to have the core PC both on Thursday and on Friday. And we're also going to see the University of Michigan inflation report. That's going to happen on Friday. Companies are going to report during the week. On Monday, actually, we have smaller companies that are less known. But on Tuesday, we're going to see Verizon, Johnson & Johnson, Lockheed Martin, Halliburton, GE, and others. You can see the list here. In squares, you can see the ones that I'm very interested to hear their results. Tuesday, after the market closes, Microsoft is going to report, and of course, other companies as well. And on Wednesday, a huge celebration. Boeing, ASML, AT&T, and others. And of course, Wednesday, after the market closes. ServiceNow, Tesla, and Las Vegas Sands. Thursday morning, we have American Airlines, Southwest, and others. Intel and Visa after the market closes, and Chevron and American Express. The market itself, everyone is looking at the same charts. The charts that identify a downturn, a downtrend that you can see all the highs becoming lower highs. You can see them one after the other. And we are now at a point where the market needs to take a decision. Is the market going to break the downtrend and start going up? Is the market going to hit its head again with resistance and fall down? Or is the market going to keep being choppy, which means basically that it's breaking the downtrend? Everyone is looking at this chart and waiting to see how the duel, the Mexican standoff between the bears and the bulls, is going to end up. And we're going to be here every week to update everyone on what is going on in the market. So, if you enjoyed everything you've seen so far, it would be amazing if you can smash that like button. Of course, if you're not subscribed yet, it would be a great opportunity to click that subscribe button. Till next week, or maybe there might be a midweek video. Turn those notifications on. Till next video. Bye-bye.